we still have a session before lunch, and it will be quite an interesting session to see what is our scorecard on the ICAO side and on the Abuja Safety Targets. Aviation safety is not only an operational matter, it's also policy and regulatory commitment. And Africa has made commitments at the level of Abuja Safety Targets and at ICAO. And this is what we are being held to as a tracker. We shall have a couple of presentations. The first one will be on the ICAO Global Safety Goals, and that will be presented by AFRAA. And then we have the update on the Abuja Safety Targets, where we stand as of date, and that shall be presented by AFCAC, but that shall be done in virtual format. I hope Henry is connected online. Thank you. So we shall start with Mr. Gausu Konate, Consulting Director, Technical and Operations at AFRAA, to make the presentation on the ICAO Global Safety Goals progress. Thank you. A round of applause for Gausu.
Thank you very much. And the two presentations are standing between yourself and the lunch. So, well, I'm presenting this on behalf of ICAO, pretending I'm still in ICAO. I left in 2016, ICAO. Okay. The ICAO have a global aviation safety plan. It has been reviewed, hence the idea of updating us on that evolution. So the first thing is I want to show you here is a vision of that plan and mission. As you can see, I highlighted a bit something there. 0 fatality in commercial air transport operation by 2030 and beyond. I think Gerardo shows you where we stand in terms of accident in the region, and you can see the global goal to have 0. Of course, what he showed was about Africa, but we are part of this planet, if I want to use the terminology of a VP. So it is also valid for us. So then, of course, the mission is to continuously enhance global aviation safety performance and resilience by providing collaborative framework, collaborative, I repeat, to state, region, and the industry. It cannot be done without the industry. There are 6 goals. The way you have to look at it, you will see clearly some of these goals, clearly, as I said, the free part, the state, the industry, and all in a collaborative way. So the goal 1 is to achieve a continuous reduction of operational safety risks. So we are dealing with the risks. That's why we are looking at 0 accident. So if we deal with the risk, and this is the accountability for all of us. It's not only state as safety oversight. It's not only those who are providing the service, the industry. It's not so, and then all the regional organization as well. So the second one seems to be a bit specific to state oversight capabilities. So you heard the lady in the morning where we have praised the lady for the score in terms of oversight. The rate of meeting the standards, practice and recommendation of ICAO being quite high. So that also is important, and together we must collaborate to make sure individual states also go that way. So the third one, establishment of a SSP. The SSP is at state level again. However, you can't have that SSP without the data coming from the industry. So it's, again, a collaborative approach toward this goal. Goal, the fourth one, strengthening the regional collaboration. If you remember, I was telling you in my first intervention, but this is really what we did. We make sure that AFRAA was part of that regional collaboration. So our regional have peculiarities. It have been shown when we're setting the scene. So as a region, we need to address first, hence this type of goal. Then the fifth one, say clearly we need to have, in that case, regional aviation safety plan. So at regional, again, we need to have a plan to bring us to this zero from now to 2030. At national level, we also have to have this plan, a national plan. So these two types of plan must be aligned on the global aviation plan itself. Okay, and then finally, we have to have a mechanism from the activities from the industry to show clearly that definitely we are going toward that. So I have put just two accountabilities here. The region and each state should use the GASP. Again, this is our Bible, if I can say, and be able to develop the regional aviation safety plan and national aviation safety plan with the participation of the industry. So then, of course, the RASO and the NAS present the strategic direction for managing aviation safety at the regional and national levels, respectively, for a period, and should be developed with, obviously, again, the goal set. So the six I've presented to you earlier, and the participation of the industry. So just to put it in a schematic format, you can see we refer to the gaps first, and then when you are developing your regional plan, you must make sure you take on board the goal set in the GASP, and then look at your regional issues. So again, I'm setting you back to the blue chart you have seen in the morning when we're setting the scene. Then that's the way you will have your particular regional aviation safety plan dealing with your own issues, working toward the goal, number one. So at national level, you need to take the other two. So the global aviation safety plan, the regional safety plan, where your state is located, and be able now to come out with your national safety plan. Now, you recall that Gerardo said clearly with his horizontal bars there to say, look, guys, which are the ones which are more relevant in your region? Then shocking was the unknown. And they, of course, he also cover some of these ones, the runway safety, the runway excursion, which come high in our region, and safe it. But Geraldo said also clearly, guys, it is common to the world. The main one are common to the world. This is what came out clearly in regards there. So, yes, we do have them. Now, the remark he made was the order may be different from the region. In our case, runway safety is really something we need to take care. We have established runway safety teams locally at airport. I'm not sure if they are that effective now using Kiran word. Because before we establish the Abuja Safety Target, which will be updated after me, the runway excursion were prominent. That is back 2012. And yet, in our region, they remain on the top. So it is really important, I will say, that yes, this is common to the world, but look at it with the eyes and saying, which one comes first for our region, and focus and contribute toward the establishment of the regional plan. I spoke about it. Now, ICAO came with targets, with every goals, with timeline on them, of every group of stakeholders as well, with a goal. I'm not going through them. So the best thing is there are two, ICAO have always guidance material. They are good in that. So there are two guidance material there, the Doc 10162 and the Doc 10131, so which give you a guideline if you are working towards a regional aviation safety plan or a national safety plan. With that, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gausu. So we'll take the presentation on the Abuja Safety Targets update, and then we open the floor for questions for both of them. I want to check if our speaker, Henry, from AFCAC, is able to hear us.
Hello, Maureen.
Hello, Henry.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Can you see us?
How is Johannesburg?
It's fine. Can you see us?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being part of this great conference.
Thank you very much. So the floor is yours to take us through the Abuja Safety Targets updates, and then we shall open the floor for you and Gausu to take any questions from our audience. So over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, my dear sister Maureen. Greetings to the entire fraternity meeting Johannesburg from AFCAC in Dakar, Senegal. My name is Henry Okech, the Director of Safety and Technical Services at the African Civil Aviation Commission. I'm very excited to be part of this meeting, and thank you so much for allowing us to participate virtually. I'm going to present about the revised Abuja Safety Targets. These are the African targets that were conceived way back in 2012. And I believe most of you know the history behind the Abuja Safety Targets. They were developed at a time when Africa was going through a great challenge, where safety deficiencies were almost at the peak of everything. And there was a problem at that time, the whole world looking at Africa. And in the wisdom of our Council of Ministers at the continental level, they came together with the experts. My brother Konate at that time was part of the process, and they conceived the famous Abuja Safety Targets. Now, these targets constitute the framework where the safety deficiencies on the continent have been addressed continentally right from 2012, and of course, with the first revision coming on in 2017, and finally we had the last revision in 2022-2023, which culminated in the adoption and endorsement by the ministers at the AU level, and eventually presented to the summit. And since then, in December 2024, AFCAC was tasked to make sure that the member states, the industry players are all on board in the implementation of these targets. So allow me to go through this presentation. I'm sure at the end of it, we'll work together with my brother Konate to respond to any clarification we may need or any questions we may have, so that we share the clear picture. It's about the global safety goals and Abuja targets in action. I'm glad that we've already gone through the 6 safety goals from ICAO, and these form the basis of our revised Abuja safety targets, given that all the targets have been categorized under each of the 6 aviation safety goals. Next slide, please. So the content of this presentation is basically to share with you the status of aviation safety in Africa, noting that the Council of Ministers requires AFCAC to report to them every 2 years on the status of implementation in each of the African member states, the challenges they've encountered in the implementation, and how we are supporting them. Secondly, we'll also have a clue on what happens as far as the accident rates in Africa are concerned. And I'm glad that our partners, IATA, Boeing, are providing this information. AFRAA is also providing this information. So I may not dwell so much on this because this information is already available. And then we get into the revised Abuja Safety Targets. We'll get to understand deeply why are we calling them the revised Abuja Safety Targets from the initial nomenclature of Abuja Safety Targets. And subsequently, there's an action plan to guide the member states on how to implement these targets. Beyond the targets themselves and the action plan, we have also gone further together with the stakeholders to develop an online monitoring and reporting tool, which I'll also be highlighting here. And finally, I'll be calling upon the stakeholders who are in this meeting and those that may not be attending to support the implementation of this process. Everybody has got a role to play. Thank you so much, my brother Konate, for indicating that all stakeholders indeed have got a responsibility and a role to play in enhancing safety. So as we begin the presentation, this is how the picture looks like. We normally present the report covering all the African member states who are signatories to the Chicago Convention. So as we speak right now, the average effective implementation score for Africa is 62.2. Now, we are not badly off, but we haven't reached the new target that has been set globally, which is 75%. Recently, we had 3 of our very own states doing very well. Côte d'Ivoire was audited and it had 93.78%. South Africa had an ICVM recently and the preliminary score is at 95.12%. Nigeria also recently had an ICVM recording a very impressive score of 91.4%. So each of these increase in EI, if you divide it by the 54 contracting states to the Chicago Convention, you find that the increase is minimal because we have some states that are way below 15% in terms of the EI scores. Now, the highest average EI score for Africa is under the critical element 1, which is at 76.7%, followed by the critical element 2 at 75.1%. Now, the 8 critical elements are actually the foundation of a state safety oversight system. There are 8 of them. CE1 is about the national legislation, the Civil Aviation Acts. Number 2 are the specific operating regulations. CE3 talks about the establishment of the CAA and the systems. CE4 talks about the personnel, their qualification and training. CE5 is the provision of technical guidance material, tools that the inspectors need to conduct their oversight responsibilities. And these form the establishment critical elements from 1 up to 5. I'm sure you all know that from 6 to 7, these are the implementation critical elements, which include certification responsibilities, licensing, authorizations, and approvals in CE6. And then we have CE7, which follows when all that has been done, when the operators, the service providers have been licensed, authorized, or approved to conduct their businesses in accordance with the law. Surveillance, inspections, and audits would follow. And eventually, whatever comes out of that in form of findings or observations are closed up in the resolution of safety issues in CE8. So the lowest performing audit area among the audit areas that we have airworthiness, personnel licensing, operation of aircraft, AGA, ANS, LEG, AIG, and now ICAO is moving towards SSP being an audit area. So the lowest performing on the continent is aircraft accident and incident investigation, which is at 49.6, and this is what lowers our average. Among the critical elements, CE4 is also struggling at 59.4, CE6 at 61.7, CE7 at 48%, and finally, we are not very good at resolving issues that emanate from audits, inspections, or surveillance. We stand at 37.7. Now, this information is very important for us. 'to, 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 ' qualified and trained personnel under CE4, it means we may struggle in terms of safety oversight. And that's why the industry or the players involved may not have the appropriate guidance or support to comply with the requirements of the law. And that's why we end up struggling in terms of the licensed personnel, the AOC holders, aviation training organizations, and other licensed service providers. And of course, when we follow up on surveillance, we also end up with those marginal performance scores. The graphs indicate exactly what I've said. So I request that we move on to the next slide, which also introduces another safety deficiency. For a long time, Africa has been struggling with the significant safety concerns. Now, the significant safety concerns arise when a certificated service provider or a licensed or approved service provider exercises privileges when he's not adequately qualified. And as such, when ICAO comes in for audits or ICVMs or 3 mandatory information requests or information shared by stakeholders, they determine that indeed there is a danger to international air transport, then a significant safety concern occurs. So from earlier on, we had so many of them, and hence part of the reason why we came up with the Abuja Safety Targets. And along the way, with concerted effort from all stakeholders, AFRAA, IATA, ICAO, Council, AFCAC, we were able to fight them. And at that time, most of them were related to air operator certification processes. So right now, we don't have so much of that happening, but a new regime of SSCs is emerging under the air navigation services. So from 2021 to date, so far we have a number of them that have been reduced, but the existing ones are 3 in Africa, related to flight procedure design and validation, as well as calibration of flight equipment. The next slide will also present a snapshot of what has been happening in terms of the accident rates on the continent. I'm glad that my brother Konate highlighted a bit of that, and this information is readily available. And of course, since 2012, there's been a significant drop in the rate of accidents in terms of millions per departure, in terms of accident rates per million departures, but we are not yet there yet. It's not yet time for us to celebrate, and that's why we really need to make sure we work together to curb this trend. Now, the information shared is based on what is reportable. ICAO has got a threshold on what kind of accidents and for what category of aircraft such accidents are reported. So we may find that in terms of private operations, we may not have that information, but we are aware that we still have such accidents happening. In the next slide, I'll not go into the details because they all relate to the rate of accidents, specifically indicating where the grave danger is. And this is the reason now, as we move to the next slide, we want to see how the revised Abuja safety targets have been evolving. Now, initially when the targets were developed, there were a set of targets which were very plain, clear, and straightforward. There wasn't any additional information in terms of what they pertain, who is involved, the KPIs, the stakeholders, the resources required, and so on and so forth. And of course, when the revision was done in 2017, the only addition were the air navigation services targets. However, since then, there was a need to amplify what these targets would look like for ease of implementation. And that's why when we revised them from 2022 with the support of ICAO, AUC, AFRAA, IATA, Council, the AASOS, and many others, we purposed to make them easy to follow, easy to implement, results-oriented, and of course, outcome-based. The documents are available in the public domain. I'm sure at the end of this presentation, or at the end of the conference, we'll access them. They are also available on the AFCAC website. So these targets right now, as they are revised, Number one, having been aligned to the ICAO Global Safety Goals, and also to make sure that they are aligned to the regional plans, they define key performance indicators for each of the targets, the challenges from experience that has been hampering the effective implementation by the member states, and also the challenges which need to be overcome for us to implement them appropriately. Experts proposed mitigation measures for each of the challenges that they had identified, and also measures that were appropriate for the implementation of each of the specified targets. We went further to define the kind of resources required so that it'd be very clear for member states and the industry to determine before they begin the journey on what they need to have. And finally, as far as possible, we try to bring on board all the stakeholders who are key to the implementation of these targets, and where we could not immediately define some of the very important players, we provided for the others. So this does not block anybody. All of us are actually invited to be part and parcel of this process. Now, beyond the targets, in the next slide, we also developed a very clear action plan. The ministers did their work. They approved and endorsed the Revised Abuja Safety Targets. Now, the how was what we needed to define in the action plan. So with the assistance of our expert working group members, we convened various meetings and workshops to finalize the action plan, which we presented to the AFRAA Plan Steering Committee in December last year for approval and endorsement. Now, the Revised Abuja Safety Targets Action Plan provides a very comprehensive and coordinated framework for addressing the critical aviation safety deficiencies affecting our own continent. It's designed to strengthen the state safety oversight capabilities, enhance implementation of the ICAO standards and recommended practices, and also go a long way in addressing each of the global safety goals. And the most important, as mentioned by my brother Konate, is the reduction of fatalities to zero in the coming years. So the status of implementation, including the challenges faced by states, as mentioned earlier, will periodically be presented to our ministers and eventually to the AU Summit so that appropriate decisions can be made. And of course, every member state will be held responsible and accountable on how they're progressing on this implementation. Because ultimately, we really want to make sure that our continent has got enhanced safety. Now, this action plan, if we move to the next slide, I'll give you snapshots of what there is. It's very elaborate. You can see goal number one, as mentioned by Konate, achieve continuous reduction of operational safety risks. We've defined a set of actions required for us to address this. On your right-hand side, you can see that for every action, we have specific steps with very clearly defined tasks aligned to the objective of that particular action. We also have the responsible entities. We have the supporting entities, the timelines expected to implement the specific task, and of course, the estimated budgets for guidance. These are for reference purposes. Of course, it would vary based on the specific circumstances in a given state, and where appropriate, the experts provided remarks that would support the implementation. And the same has been done for the subsequent slides. I'll not get into the details of each because the layout is the same, but just to give you an overview that within the 330-page documents, all this has been provided for. So if you went to the next slide, you will see more or less the same. Depends on what you want, and it's very user-friendly. Now, the way it is, a state may choose to begin with any of the targets they feel they are prepared to begin on. And of course, ultimately, it's expected that they'll fulfill or comply with the implementation of all of them. Next slide, please. So the same for the rest, and you go on in the same manner all the way to the end of the action plan. And of course, it's very critical to note that the implementation of each of the targets happens at the state level. And of course, it also ends up in the regional level. But those involved include ICAO, AFCAC, the Regional Safety Oversight Organizations, the Regional Accident Investigation Organization in Africa. We only have one, Bagaya. We have AFRAA. We have the ATOs and many others. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, you'll see the same. When you open the document, please feel free to determine what there is. All that my brother mentioned, the runway excursions, the runway safety teams, and all that we need to do to address some of the identified deficiencies are clearly elaborated in this action plan. Next slide, please. Now, besides the revised Abuja safety targets, which are now very, very clear, very comprehensive, and requesting every stakeholder to play a key role, we have the action plan that I've mentioned. You can see how elaborate it is, very comprehensive, and also dependent on collaborative approach, project planning methodology, where every task or action can be picked as a project in any given state. So if AFRAA decided to run with Abuja safety target number 12 in Gabon, they could do so and support. And of course, other players can do the same. And where we need to work together, maybe for a specific target in a given state, we can always come together. So besides those two important aspects, we didn't also have a very clear way of monitoring and reporting the implementation of the Abuja safety targets. And for a long time, we used the conventional questionnaires where states at their own pace would submit the information. It was not real time. As and when there were delays, that would really affect our reporting. So we've gone a step further and developed a real-time monitoring tool where states can actually interact with this system, come up with teams and committees constituting with all the players within their state, up to and including the ministerial level and the industry. Once they have implemented all the tasks and actions required, they have consolidated the evidence and validated it amongst themselves, then they can interact with this tool and provide the required information. Now, this dashboard is provided in 4 languages. We have it in English, French, Portuguese, and Arabic. So you can see it's really user-friendly for all the languages spoken on our continent, the official languages that we provide for. And of course, the progress can be monitored. As and when any state engages with the tool, we'll always follow up as admins of the system to see the progress. And the intention for us to be the administrators and follow it on real time is to make sure that, for instance, if a state records 100% implementation of a given target, we've agreed with our stakeholders, AFRAA being one of them, that we'd be interested to know what has been done for them to record that. So this evidence will be available for us to look through. And at the same time, they'll be able to share the experiences with other states and the best practices that they followed for them to achieve that. At the same time, we are able to monitor states that are lagging in interacting with this tool. If we observe that a state has taken, let's say, 6 months and over without interacting or providing any useful information, then we can engage them to find out exactly what is happening. So this is how it is. All the states are provided. We can move to the next slide. Of course, there are more details. In the interest of time, I will not log in to show you how it is, but it's available. And we have gone further to request our member states from the beginning of January until recently. We requested each state to nominate 2 facilitators. We call them the Revised Abuja Safety Targets National Facilitators, who will be coordinating the processes of implementation of these targets with all the relevant stakeholders, interacting with all the key players, and of course, relating with us to inform us the developments in the states, the challenges they may be facing, and any call for support. And ultimately, they're the ones responsible with the relevant credentials to log in and provide the relevant information. We've agreed in our recent workshop where we did some form of induction for them to understand fully the contents of the revised targets, the action plan, and also we gave them some OJT and interactive session for them to get acquainted with this system. So right now they are fully acquainted. And from the 8th of May, the system has gone live. Whatever information there is therein is what the facilitators are providing. Last week, we had meetings with our regional directors general, and we took them through all these. They appreciated this, and they're fully aware that their facilitators are actually working. And of course, the facilitators will only feed the information which has been processed by the state. That means all the key players are involved before information is brought onto this dashboard. If you go to the next, who are vital in the implementation of this? As mentioned earlier, the member states are the cornerstone of the implementation. This is where the real action takes place, and periodically they need to report the implementation status, the challenges they face to us so that we can escalate it to the appropriate authorities or principals on the continent through their Abuja Safety Targets facilitators. And these facilitators have been trained. We spent time with them. They fully understand the revised Abuja Safety Targets, the action plan, and the interactive dashboard. And of course, the international partners and all other partners who may not fall into the category of international partners, you are really critical. The industry is core. ICAO, IATA, AFRAA, Council, Boeing, the ATOs, and all the industry players contribute significantly to the successful implementation of the revised Abuja Safety Targets. So with this new approach, we believe that the implementation rate will actually be higher. It will be something that is worthy trying, because there's accountability, there's results to show, and the reporting will be happening at all levels in all the fora, including this one. Actually, this is the first continental major fora we are presenting, and we'll be doing this continually. Last week, we did it regionally to the DGs. And of course, our principal, the African Union Commission, through whom we report to the Council of Ministers. So as I conclude, there's a call to all stakeholders, as you listen to me, to be fully involved. You can determine maybe to secure some form of budget for some states who may not have the financial resources to implement some of those targets, or you can provide the expertise based on the action plan so that together we can move this wheel of implementing the revised Abuja Safety Targets. If we did this together, I'm sure we'll have a different narrative for our continent. And of course, funding, as mentioned earlier, some of the states are struggling. Resolving SSCs has become a challenge just because of funding. Within the targets, we have the infrastructure aspect or component, which also requires heavy capital investment. So as and when you are able, please, you are called upon to identify which state, which target you really want to support our member states. Then, of course, as we get to the end of the presentation in our last slide, take note of this progress. We've gone a long way. We've actually elaborated the targets, aligned them appropriately to the global and regional plans, the safety and air navigation plans as given by ICAO. We've also developed an action plan, which is very comprehensive. And of course, we also have within the states, the implementation facilitators to coordinate appropriately all the efforts and resources that stakeholders have. So please support this, this call. Let our member states implement this. Now, one important thing maybe to mention, the ICAO activities, both the use of CMA and the ICVMs, they happen in a long span. Some states have taken more than 5 years. So before the EI changes, before the actual story is told about the effective implementation, a lot has happened. And we'd want to leverage on the real-time information we're providing here, so that if we all supported our member states, if we are all involved, we can tell the story on how states are doing in implementing the targets. Long before ICAO comes, I believe we can have visibility on what is happening. And of course, when the audits come, when the ICVMs come, they'll find that our states have made significant strides in preparing for those audits. They'll not struggle, and they'll actually leverage on the evidence they have used to make sure that they're implementing the revised Abuja Safety Targets. So thank you very much for your kind attention. I hand over to my brother Konate and the program director, Maureen. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Henry, for the update regarding the Abuja Safety Targets, the new approach, and the underlying reason why it has been revised in a very easy manner to track the progress and how we can access those documents online. I want to open the floor for a couple of questions from the audience for both presentations, the one by Gausu and Henry. Do you have any questions? Any question? Yes, we have one. Jonathan, you can you have the mic on that side? Thank you. The gentleman was standing.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Kehinde Olasumbo from Nigeria. I work with Kerojet Services Limited. We are in the business of aviation for marketing. A lot has been said about aviation safety in the past few days of this convention. But I want to ask, are financial pressures causing hidden safety compromises in African aviation? Thank you.
Did you get the question? Please, sir, if you can kindly repeat.
All right. I said, are financial pressures causing hidden safety compromises in African aviation?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gausu or Henry, who will take that? Henry?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure Konate will also support me once I've submitted. My brother from Nigeria is very right that financial pressures really compromise aviation safety. And maybe I may start by saying, in our experience of supporting African member states, you find that quite a number of them do not have qualified, trained, and competent personnel because of issues of capacity building, especially in the areas that require approvals, licensing, and authorizations. So by this, I directly refer to inspectors in flight operations, airworthiness, personnel licensing, and to some extent, of course, those who oversee the air navigation services. We all know what it takes to train a pilot, and getting a pilot from the cockpit to become an inspector is a tall order. And because of this, we don't have adequate personnel for oversight activities. Now, a very well established oversight system would entail the licensing process that is done in accordance with the ICAO SAPs, and eventually following up with regular surveillance activities. That means we need to have scheduled surveillance, ad hoc surveillance, and those that could just happen, maybe to the foreign operators. Now, for us to have the numbers to undertake these kind of inspection activities, surveillance activities, and audit activities, you'd find that we lack that capability. And that's why we cannot follow up on how the licensed entities, the licensed personnel, are actually complying with our national requirements. And as such, we create a window whereby we leave a lot of unattended aspects to pile. We also lack, because of finances, elaborate systems to track safety deficiencies. The industry is not able to report directly to the CAA because the CAA has not established such a mechanism. And as such, the industry is managing a lot of times their own issues without adequate support from the CAA. So such systems are really important. So as stakeholders, if you are able to support any CAA to establish a safety reporting system where they directly interface with such occurrences, it will go a great deal in assisting member states. And finally, for us to take off and land safely, we have a lot of infrastructure that has to be in place. And the infrastructure deficiencies require significant amount of investment. Between 2023 and 2024, AFCA, ICAO, AUC, IATA, AFRAA, Council, AASOS, and many stakeholders conducted successfully an aviation infrastructure gap analysis. And the gaps are actually glaring. I'm sure the report is also public. You can access it. Now, how do we fix these gaps? And actually, that is the main reason why the new crop of significant safety concerns is in earnest, just because We cannot calibrate our equipment regularly as required. We cannot modernize our equipment. We cannot fix whatever needs to be fixed. And you can see when you combine all this, it actually compromises safety in a bigger way. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Is there a need to complement the answer, Gausu?
Well, he's right, but the solution definitely for me is again in regional cooperation. If you don't have the aeroplane to calibrate, as SECNA does have, South African does have, and these calibration equipment aeroplane, they are not fully in the air all the time. So let's collaborate. There are also that smart way of fixing these financial issues. I don't say the financial gaps are not there, but I'm sure if we're managing a bit more better collaboration, we could address this. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Do you have any final question before we break for lunch?
I have one.
Okay. I'm near you, so you can have.
The presentation for this question for you, Mr. Konate. Okay, let me use the microphone. Can you put his presentation on the slide, the second last slide? Second last slide. Yeah, the high-risk categories of accidents, I think it says.
The global one.
Yes, you can see I'm flight ops guy. You know, this other stuff, it's fantastic, it's great, but it's above my pay grade. So I'm going to ask flight ops questions.
This one?
No, the second last, I believe. Go to the, no, from
Gausu. Okay.
So I have to be ICAO again.
the high risks categories. I believe it was,
This one.
Here we go,
Yeah.
we go. Of occurrences. Let me just make a short statement here before I ask the question, and it's for you, Mr. Konate?
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. The mid-air collisions. In my opinion, the near misses should also be part of the category. In other words, this could be and/or TCAS resolution advisories.
Okay.
You know, safety is not only measured in event of an accident, certainly incidents also need to be treated with the same category and concern. Now, my question is, considering the near misses also, if you look at Africa, my question to you is, in your opinion or your knowledge of statistics, is there anything here that is most common to Africa in terms of high-risk categories occurrences as we see? And what is, if anything, done in Africa in terms of preventions in any of these? Thank you.
Okay, I think, okay, Gerardo, go ahead.
Thank you. Good question. And TCAS arrays are the metric used to evaluate the risk of mid-air collision. In my presentation this morning, I didn't put it in because Africa is the region of the world that has the least risk, the least TCAS arrays, the region with the highest rate of TCAS arrays per 1,000 flights is North America. Ask the North Americans, not me. And the rate is given by the boxes of the airplanes, and traffic density is similar to Europe and some areas in Asia, yet the rate in Europe is 10 times lower than in North America, and the rate in Asia is 10 times lower. So this is something that's being addressed by the ICAO Regional Aviation Safety Group in Pan-America, because they also had a mid-air collision there last year. So that was the reason That and runway incursion also was really uncommon in Africa. It was not in the Flight Safety Foundation database. So we had 3 out of those 5 pointed out in the morning. Thanks, Gausu.
Do you actually believe that, Mr. Kanate?
Yes, I do, because it's mentioned flight density. If you look at our airspace as a continent, 9, you have how many square kilometers? Africa.
A lot.
Do people have figures on the area of Africa? You can fit US, the whole Europe, and India in that area. Yet, out of the 39 million of movement, if you are been told several times, we have only 2%. So naturally, we have a low density in our airspace. But we do monitor what you are saying, the near miss. I think I mentioned one of the activities in the region where annually we look at all ATS reports and we analyze them. So we look at the cause. Is it infrastructure, loss of communication, and how we collected that? Is it triggered by we went all the way to the resolution instead of just the advisory? So these are, as long as we are doing this, yesterday I think I said, touch wood, we don't have mid-air collision. But we are looking already what happened before. I have to accept also, in a low density flight area. So that's why definitely we are ahead of America.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we now are at the point of a nice, well-deserved lunch break. And thank you very much for your attention and for the engagements that we have had since morning. Lunch is served at the Keystone Bistro restaurant, and where it is located, once you get to level 1, turn left and go straight ahead. For those of us who are staying at this hotel, it's the same place we have our breakfast. And enjoy your lunch. We shall be back in the room at exactly 14:45. Will we make it?
Yeah.
It will be too much.
Well,
It's too short.
Yes, it's too
Can we make it 1500?
Right, yes.
Yes, let's be back in the room for 1500 hours. The session will be very interesting on predictive data and early warnings. You do not want to miss that. Bon appetit.